Hello and welcome to the Mill. I am your host, Dusty Crane, and here we are at the last episode or show of the Mill for 2019. So, of course, as we close one year, it's only natural that we start looking toward what is to come, in this case, 2020. We got a few titles that are, if you pay attention to the Stonemaier newsletter, and I'll post that graphic right there. We always see Jamie's work in progress, and he kind of has a green, yellow, red, and runs down what is coming, what is in process. And so I thought we'd kind of go through that and make some predictions on what that looks like. So the first thing, I'll start by saying that I do have at least one title that I don't think it's currently slated for 2020. I don't think it's going to make 2020. I don't necessarily have any reason for that belief, but I don't know. Call it a feeling. So the first thing that we are for sure going to see this year, and I think it's actually going to be the first title that's released this year, is the My Little Scythe expansion. Now, if you're looking at the newsletter content, of course, you're going to go, well, yeah, of course it is. It's the furthest along. It's already, the components are made. It's good to go. So that's maybe a gimme, but let's go ahead and talk about what you think might be in the My Little Scythe expansion. We do know that the base game had a couple of room for another set of seekers, 2 seekers for each faction. So I think we can probably expect to see a couple more seekers. I don't think that's given away too much. I think that's to be expected. However, we borrowed from, in this case, the Rise of Fenris, in that we have a Sir Neff is the villain of our story here. And so if we're borrowing from the Rise of Fenris for a villain and maybe some other content for the expansion, I think we can probably, or maybe I wonder whether or not we'll get some pieces of story. And with that story, I think we tie in the other Scythe expansion. In the very first base game, we have the Invaders from Afar factions. And so we have that expansion. The only one, if we talk about Fenris being involved in this expansion, then I think there's an opportunity there to take advantage of the Wind Gambit. So I'm going to go out there and say I think there's going to be airships in the expansion. I think if there is any story, I think a way we can probably work those airships in is something along the lines of, maybe, like I said, story-wise, we can't get to the castle like we used to. Maybe Sir Neff has set up some kind of force field, or there's some kind of corruption around the castle, and the airships could be used to deliver those apples and gems. I don't think you're going to get a whole lot of core mechanic changes. I don't think we're going to get new resources, but I think something like that would play into what we already have and also give those airships a functional purpose. I think the Wind Gambit itself for Scythe, there's a lot of people that say they don't really serve a purpose, even when you're using the cards that give them offensive and defensive capability. They feel like Scythe kind of plays on its own. So I think having kind of a story piece that says, hey, it can't be business as usual, would really give these airships a reason to exist. So I think that's a possibility for the My Little Scythe expansion, is we'll have some airships, we'll have a couple new seekers at least, and in terms of kind of bringing in content from other expansions, maybe we get a little bit of story. So that's my prediction for My Little Scythe. Like I said, I think that's going to be the first one. Now, the rest of these we know very little about, but I am going to take some hints from the Stonemaier Champions t-shirts. Jamie mentioned that he hid some teasers, or they're not really hidden, they're right up front, close and center. So the first one that's mentioned on the release calendar, looks like it's the closest to being released, is Codename Sand. And that title is actually represented by an hourglass. And so I had some ideas. Jamie has mentioned that he's a big fan of time stories. He has mentioned that he likes the idea of time travel in a game, so he's mentioned Anachrony being a game that he thinks is pretty clever with its time travel mechanisms. So I think there's a couple of different ways that Codename Sand could actually, I guess, present where a hourglass would make sense. It could certainly just be a reference to time, and maybe the game just plays out like any other game, and there's time is just kind of a part of the story, but it doesn't necessarily feel like it. Or it could be a mechanic. I'm thinking of something like Boggle or something where you shake this thing up and then you turn the hourglass over, where it's actually a physical hourglass maybe that comes with the game, and then you have something to do within a set time period. I don't know if that's like maybe it's a analysis paralysis solution where you flip this timer and it's like, listen, you got 30 seconds, make a choice. And if that's the case, this is going to be a very hard one for me to talk about in 2020 because traditionally I don't like that feeling. My very first memory of a game that involves this time mechanism is an old classic. I think it's called Concentration, where you have, I don't know, this grid of 50 or 60, as when you're a kid it feels like 1,000 little shapes, and they're all kinds of different shapes, like a macaroni noodle or a star or a square or a circle, and you've got to get all these things all these pieces into their right areas on the board, and they're recessed areas. And what happens is you start the game by you turn the timer, and it's either a minute or 45 seconds or whatever, and you push this thing down, and the whole time the timer is buzzing, and you're trying to grab these pieces and put them where they go on this game board, and then if you get it, then cool. But in any case, this thing is going to when the timer is up, it explodes those pieces into the air. It's a loud bang, and it just there's so much, like, even as a kid I didn't like that. It causes this feeling of anxiety in me, and so I'm hoping it's not a real-time thing where you have to do this, whatever it is. I don't know if it's take a turn or make a choice within that set period of time, because traditionally me and that mechanic are not compatible, but we'll have to see. It could be something, like I said, it could be something like story-wise. It might not be a mechanic at all. It could be a misdirect here, but the hourglass iconography, that's what that makes me think. And so this one right now, looking over that graphic, is slated. It looks like it's pretty far along, so I do think Codename Sand is going to be a 2020 title. Codename Cape, though, is the next one that looks like it's furthest along. The graphic on the shirt is actually a cape, like a superhero would wear. And so superheroes are hot right now, right? With Avengers Endgame, breaking all these records, and superheroes are, that's what's doing well in cinema. So it makes sense to maybe capitalize on that as well. However, I don't know if Stonemaier Games would go the IP route. I don't think we're going to see a Marvel Stonemaier game or a DC Stonemaier game, so we're not going to see, Batman or Superman or Cyclops or Professor Xavier or any of those comic book staples. And so I think of the other ways superheroes have been done. Jamie has mentioned that he's a big fan of Brandon Sanderson, and Brandon Sanderson has that line of books that's about superheroes called The Reckoners, and it's a little different because the whole idea is people that have power abuse that power against the people who don't have it, and so the superheroes in these stories are not actually superheroes at all. They have superpowers, but they're super villains. They're doing awful things to people. And so Codename Cape, I think my question would be, if it is actual superheroes, it's how do you get somebody invested in wanting to play Clawman over Wolverine or Swingman over Spider-Man? Clawman and Swingman sound like Mega Man villains. But, if you have your buddies over and somebody, they're not avid board gamers, or you're trying to introduce it to your parents at Christmas or something, people are going to kind of want to go towards what they know, right? I think somebody would choose a Marvel game over a superhero game, or a DC game over a superhero game. And so it's for all of those reasons that I think that just a regular superhero game would be kind of difficult. So I really think that the mechanics have got to be something special. So if Codename Cape is a superhero game, I'm wondering like what it could do that would make you say, okay, forget about Cyclops, forget about the Avengers or the X-Men, and I want to play whatever Cape becomes. I'm really, really super interested because I think I've wore the Marvel shirt on here. I love the Marvel movies. I love superheroes. And I've been playing the heck out of Marvel Champions lately. So I'm really, really, really interested in Marvel, in Codename Cape. I can't wait to see what that becomes. However, like I said, I feel for some reason like that might be one that slips off into 2021. But I don't know. 2020 is also slated to be the next Wingspan expansion. And of course, we have no idea what continent it is, and you're not going to get any hints, I'm sure, from the artist Instagram pages because there are way too many birders out there that would be able to narrow it down to a continent like that. Although there are a lot of birds that cross over, so maybe you could, kind of play with that in terms of teaser images, and maybe it narrows it down to 2 or 3 places. I don't know. But that is another one that I kind of wonder whether or not it could slip into 2021 because there's so much individual art to be done. However, with the expansions not having the same volume of bird cards as the base game, maybe it's not as big a deal, and also in terms of stuff that's being printed and there's not a lot of components, so maybe cards can come out quicker. So I think if the artists are able to maintain or even willing to maintain the amount of work that they're doing, I guess we could see 2020 being a release date. But I wouldn't be surprised if you got to just burn out after a while, right? I mean, they're drawing birds after birds after birds after birds, and I know it's their job, but it's an artistic endeavor, and so I could also see where it's like I got to take a step away for a little bit. So I don't know if that's the case, and I may just be speaking for myself there. They may be thrilled, and I know some people say the best way to ruin a hobby is make it your work, but that's not true of everyone. So maybe I'm just putting my own experiences on over there, but I would think that I'm going to guess that if we do get a Wingspan expansion in 2020, it's going to be Q4. I think it's probably going to be another one of those, hey, wouldn't it be cool if for Christmas you can unwrap, Wingspan Antarctica or whatever we have out there. So the final 2020, no, actually I talked about all the 2020 titles. So those are the ones that are for sure going to be 2020 titles according to the work in progress guide here. But, and I shouldn't say for sure because there are question marks over it, but the one I think is going to sneak up on us is the one that looks to be the furthest behind as of December, and that's the Tapestry expansion. I think that the Tapestry expansion is going to make it into 2020, and I think it might be to fill the hole of one of those other titles left behind. So I'm going to say Tapestry expansion gets greenlit, gets fast tracked. Let's go ahead and get a little crazy, and let's say it's Q3. Let's say that it not only makes it before the end of the year, but significantly makes it before the end of the year. I think that's going to be the one that sneaks up on us. Now here's something that I don't know that we'll be able to prove out this year since it's technically a 2021 title. Codename Gold on the shirts is a pyramid. And so that gets you to thinking naturally that it's Aztec Gold or something like that. And there are certainly other games out there that are in that same vein. So that could be, Jamie could be, saying, hey, I want to make a game with this theme. But I think this is a misdirect. I think this is Jamie trying to take our eyes off of the fact that he had found a design for Red Rising, and I think maybe this is still the Red Rising game. Where gold comes into play is the different classes of citizens in Pierce. I'm going to forget his name. Anyway, it's Pierce something, or that might be his last name, but the Red Rising books. gold is like the highest order of citizen in those stories. And so I'm going to guess that this was a way to take our eyes off of that. We keep asking Red Rising, Red Rising. If that's the case, then maybe the author is also getting questions, and maybe that's not desirable until the game is in a certain state. And so I could be wrong here. I could be off, but I'm going to guess. That's my pie-in-the-sky wild guess for what that gold is. I don't think it's a pyramid at all. I don't think it's Aztec related. I think it might actually be a Red Rising game. So we will have to see about that. But the last title that I did not mention so far is Codename Wild. I think this one is still a ways off, although I'm really excited about the fact that, okay, Jamie says I'm off base on this on the last Facebook Live video he did. I said I think Codename Wild is his open world co-op exploration game. He said I'm making assumptions. He's not going to comment on it. I still think I'm right there. I'm going to stick with it. We're going to see about this one. But Codename Wild is still a work in progress, and I believe that it is the title that Jamie mentioned. He had a breakthrough and made some progress that he's excited about. So I think we're going to start seeing Codename Wild tick off some of those completion boxes, some of those yellows turning to greens, some of those reds turning to yellows and greens, and I think that maybe we see this in 2021, late 2021, unless something really takes off and this new idea was fire, as they say. And those are my predictions for 2020. In absolutely any case, whatever comes out, whatever gets postponed or moved up or fast-tracked, I think it's going to be a great 2020. I think 2019 had some lessons to be learned with Wingspan. I think 2020 is going to be exciting in terms of, putting into play those lessons learned, what new games we have coming out, some new collaborations. I think one of those games was Jamie and a co-designer, and just to see what we have. I think what we have going forward. So I'm looking forward to 2020. I hope you're looking forward to 2020. As always, thank you for watching. Take care of yourselves and each other. And just one closing final note to everyone who was with me this entire year and everyone who joined this entire year or even with me the year before. I just want to say, if you've watched even one video through completion this year or 5 minutes of it, I don't care. If you spent any time with me this year, thank you so much. And here's to 2020. Here's to you guys. Take care. Bye.